as willing as I am to unalive the tyrants like the police who act unlawfully or in error and violate our natural rights and oppress us and go against our dictates of conscience and the will of the people, well, you know, I'm also going to say they don't have to be bad, right? The government doesn't have to be an instrument of evil. If the people would actually fucking stand up and fight, you might have a good government. Are you going to do that? Are you willing? Let me tell you like this. There's a lot of people who suffered at the hands of the United States government. A lot of people died in the Trail of Tears. They get abuses against the Japanese when they were put in internment camps in World War II. And, you know, it's just some examples we could use. Trail of Tears all. But if you finally decide you had enough, whether you're Republican or Democrat, and you realize that there's no Republicans or Democrats in office right now, because if there were Republicans in office, they would have consulted with you, the public, for your greater good, and then they would make the best decision that they know how, even if you don't know what's necessarily the best for your interest. That doesn't mean to say they can just control you either, but that's like the spirit of Republican philosophy, which you could say I'm also Republican. Or democracy, like with Tina Kotex here in Oregon, right? She has never asked all the people to submit their vote on like a referendum for what she should do, yes or no to something or an initiative. Okay? And that proves that it's not a democracy, right? So we don't have a real authentic republic or a democracy here in these United States. But we sure got a lot of tyrants. And I've been watching some cop blocking videos of people who are shutting it down. And a lot of it's failure to identify. They'll say things like you're interfering with an investigation because you won't identify yourself even if you haven't committed a crime. And they can't plainly articulate a reasonable suspicion that places you as the actual suspect. And so all they have is people who are concerned that he might be doing this, and they haven't seen him doing any of that, and nobody's sworn in testimony as to your wrongdoing. But look, I shouldn't have to educate the public. Like, I'm public enemy number one, right? I'm crippled for life because I got shot at. I blocked the path of a bullet going to my face with my elbow. I'm not even joking. People think, how'd you do that? It's all about timing. You see the bullet, you see the gun raising itself towards you as the fucking cop is holding it ready to shoot you, because guns don't kill people, the government does, right? And it's all like this, that I blocked with my elbows, two of them I went like across my elbows in front of each other, right? You can't show you on camera very well. Like this. So that's why I'm alive. I lost my left elbow in the Boogaloo of 21. It was May 30th at 10:02 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. That's when I got almost assassinated because my neighbors wanted me dead and they used the government to do their dirty work for them. That was Steve Anderson and Roka Walsh. But don't forget the other weird hair-colored lady across the street from Roka Walsh. So they're all kind of a little clique in that neighborhood. They all had a little special thing against me because I would talk on my front porch and I'd play my information broadcast during the day. And there was a single time where I actually, my psychic powers that I have let me realize my neighbors had an itch. And if I played my music 1 minute after 10 o'clock, they would freak out on me. And then sure as fuck, I tested that limit, and instantaneously they did that. They didn't have to tell me anything. I just knew that they were going to freak out about it. And I had to test to see how anal retentive, how much sand has gotten into their anus about this and has turned into a black bead. But this real conversation isn't necessarily about what happened to me and the cause stalking that I went through and the attempted murder that, you know, they put the dogs on me a second time. They used a SWAT team, the bomb squad, to arrest me for a pretrial violation because I was fucking testing out my megaphone that I got because I was going to do some activism downtown in 420 Square. That was after I got attacked in the park, and I defended myself with a switchblade, but because I'm a felon, it made it a crime. Well, you know, I'm not going to be a soft target. If you want to come after me, I'm going to make it a little harder for you than you expect. Not because I'm a bad person, but because I'm a good person, honestly. I'm not going to stand up for that shit. I'll stand up and fight, but I won't stand for it, man. I'm not going to let it happen to me again. So that's probably violating the law here in Oregon because it's becoming more tyrannical of a state, but none of these states are free. Like, come to Texas. Yeah, I'm going to grow my marijuana out in Texas, right, on my homestead. Marijuana? Will you go to Austin or something? Huh? You liberal? These mental rejects, man. Didn't, like, George Washington grow weed? And Thomas Jefferson? And he spent his time on his veranda smoking, right? Is that what it was? Veranda? It's like a front deck. So the reason this video exists is basically to say that I'm not against unaliving some pigs. You know, sometimes you just have to give it a little bit of a salat, or like be real halal about it. You know, where you fucking, what am I supposed to say about the boar and the piglet? Like father, like son. I don't believe in taking captives, if that makes sense. Not in this war. Not in this war. We need to send a very clear message. There is one possibility, though. We take no captives, but we leave a few of them to wander off on their own. Don't follow us or we'll shoot you. Yeah, and the Revolutionary War is coming. Like, they fired the first shot. I don't think people understand what I mean when I say they fired the first shot. You see that? Does that look right to you? Does that look right to you? Oh, but they didn't do it to you yet. And so, what? Until they go door to door and start trying to assassinate people? They won't do that because they're paying their taxes, right? Think you're safe? Start speaking out. Get loud about it. I dare you. I dare you to start, like, editing together text-to-speech and clips from movies and podcasts and songs and lace it all together and tell a fucking voyage, a journey story with it for, like, 4 hours. Lace it all together and then just fucking crank up your stereo in the middle of the day on a weekend. Open the front door. Let the world know what you think. You'll get in trouble. You think that that's a problem, that I would be willing to do that? You do understand I have the right to property. I have the right to freedom of communication. I have the right to speech. I have the right to produce information. I have the right to disseminate information. Nobody can know for sure who wants to hear it and who doesn't. Nobody could know at what specific time somebody who didn't want to hear it would hear something they would actually agree with. All this theoretical law shit's the reason why we have natural rights are being respected by, at least in the First Amendment, freedom of speech, which is part of your liberty, and your freedom of the press, it's part of liberty. And you can say it's all connected. People say it's just not right. Go somewhere else if you want to do that, or do it for yourself, or post it online. Oh, it'll be taken offline. They kill your link all the time with copyright infringement. Remember the illegal memes from Europe? So it's not going to be accessible worldwide. Also, you're telling me to limit the exposure to the idea because if someone is walking by at my front door on the sidewalk and they can hear it and they think it's interesting, like I used to do at 474 Broadway, right in front of a fucking business. I was the residence that was zoned right next to the fucking commercial. There was two commercial, one next to me and one across the street from me. And I was the residence at, I'm 474. Yeah. 420 Broadway is for Steve Anderson and Kathleen Roca Walsh, the extremely evil ones who really set me up bad, but even the rest of the neighborhood would set me up. And they would call Cahoots, which is like a state service, pretty much. It's like a non-profit that gets state money, but it runs for the city. So basically, it's the way that the fascism of the United States works, where they take the private and the public and they merge them together to harass me, to build a case, behavioral profile. which is basically, get the fuck away from me, leave me alone. And my neighbors were cowards in the first place. But they told me, my neighbors did talk to me a few times, and they'd say things like, don't do this because we already know and nobody else cares, and even we don't care. Well, they're speaking for everyone when they say that, and if they already know, they're barely even getting to scratch the surface of the iceberg. But you can call me a bad neighbor if you want. Did I deserve to get shot over it? The lawsuit will never happen because it's already too late, and I had put trust in some people, or at least that one person, Willow Hillman, who said that she was going to help me out with the lawsuit. She never ended up doing that. I was going for $30 million is what I wanted. But statute of liability and the doctrine of latches basically made it so we weren't able to do shit. So that's the way it is here in Oregon. It's like that a lot of places. Look up statute of liability. It's different than statute of limitations. Statute of limitations is for crimes. Statute of liabilities for civil cases or civil liabilities. But I'm a specialist in law, and I already was very smart and knew my shit about the Constitution when I got shot. But I didn't finish my work. But now my work is pretty much finished on the Cascadia plan on WordPress. Project 2028. CascadiaPlan.wordpress.com, and that's my work. My life's work. It's some of the most important things that have ever been put together for humankind, if you think about it, because there's never been such an extensive effort to create a constitution and to entail the natural rights and to promote natural justice for the people. You can say those are ancient common laws, but the legislature apparently can overturn the common law. So we made sure that won't happen because we hard encoded the common law directly into the Constitution. That makes it supreme. Yeah, no one else did that. Maybe Justinian in his codex. It gets kind of close, but those are the Roman civil laws, which I also incorporated. I just didn't add the Justinian Codex into my shit. And it'll be up to the court's interpretations of how to actually effectively come up with all the rulings, how this all works, and then the machinery will be in place. But yeah, it's my fault that I can't make the world perfect. I just focus on making it perfect. And one of the solutions to the world's problems, people talk about how they hate pedophiles. What about tyrants? You could say that a tyrant is a superset. Pedophile is below that. Or a despot. Right, a pedophile is a form of a despot. There are many, many, many despots, and a pedophile is a specific kind of despot. Why are we not focusing on a bullet dedicated to every violator of natural rights? I can put it plainly to you, that you have rights. They're universal. It doesn't require a God for you to have rights, because these are the same essential functions for your autonomy in order to execute your predominant, purpose. Your needs, your biology. And animals experience a state in nature of freedom, naturally. Even though there are predators against them, that's where self-defense comes in, and defenses in many ways including armors, or with claws, or teeth, or venom, or other things, maybe like quills, and I'm not even probably thinking sprays, skunk sprays, right? That's not necessarily an attack. It's chemical warfare. Anyway, point is, caterpillar is poison. Even the butterflies can be poisonous, right? And the moths. So yeah, what I was really trying to say is that I have a good heart, and I know what's right, and I was made the villain. I was charged and convicted through plea deal, Alfred plea of innocence, which means I pled to the charge being innocent. Does that make sense? The reason why we did that is because the way the statute was written, jury would still find me guilty no matter my innocence in fact. It's basically argumentation that my common law rights are being violated and that the statutes violate those common law rights. Even though the Supreme Court ruled in 73, because the law they wrote about resisting arrest in Oregon was in 71. Supreme Court ruled in 73. I think it was even for a case that was in Oregon. I know it was in a case in the 9th District, which is California, Oregon, I think Washington, or is it Nevada? I think it's Washington. Anyway, point is, I knew I was in the right, and my attorney just kept trying to take the deal, take the deal. You don't know what will happen if you don't take the deal. The jury will say you're guilty, even if you are innocent, because you have mental illness, and they're going to just say do that to get the help you need, so there's nothing you're going to be able to do to get out of it. This is a happenstance that I have, or maybe don't even actually. It could be brain damage from being force medicated from the age of 7. I have schizophrenia. My mother force medicated me for behavior control after she divorced my dad because his brother committed suicide. My dad lost his mind after that. Don't need the whole story. It just really is. What I said at the beginning is what I'm saying now. We need to have justice. Are you ready? Are you fucking ready? Because if people are not able to move pounds of magic mushrooms in the mail, on the post office mail, without getting in trouble, you live in a tyrannical fucking country. You realize that, don't you? You cannot argue against psilocybine mushrooms and tell me they're dangerous. They're non-toxic. In any amount you'd be capable of ingesting, you will vomit before you will poison yourself on those mushrooms. Because 5-HT-A and 5-HT-B receptors in the brain are closely modulated with the serotogenic molecule of psilocin, which fits directly in the serotonin receptor, causes the hallucinations that you get from the magic mushrooms. So before you would actually die from toxicity, like your liver failing, you will throw up and not actually get poisoned. Yeah, it's nice, isn't it? To know the difference. Imagine being the moron who doesn't understand the difference between something like a food poisoning and actually having like something toxic go in your blood and poison your nervous system. Damn, people can be stupid. They can be fucking stupid and not know and think they are wise enough to decide for another, being so unqualified. But if you ever wondered about my politics, I'm a progressive libertarian. You remember that libertarians, like, a high emphasis on libertarian, individualists, non-collectivist, right? Anti-fascist, anti-communist. I'm a social democrat, which is not a democratic socialist. Look up, know the difference. And it's not my job to educate you, but you really should check out cascadiaplan.wordpress.com. And if you want to know about the lawsuits we're trying to get filed eventually, that's Cascadian Law and Justice.wordpress.com. Cascadian Law and, not with an N, but, well, it is with an N, A-N-D, right? It's just not Law and Justice, right? So, that's the work. And we're ready for revolution, guys. So, when you actually decide that you've had enough of this obedient slavish, like, we're going to find out how it goes under Trump first. First, we're going to figure out about Trump. Alright, eminent domain's okay with you then. This is long they can steal your land. It's been your family's name for 130 fucking years. As long as the government decides they have a better use for it. Got a finger here for you. Let's see. Taxes in general are unjust. Or we could talk about violation of the bias rule, that the Supreme Court is the ruler and decider in its own case of the government. How is it free from bias if the government makes a law that the government has to decide whether or not is justified or constitutional? Really? You don't trust that? Like the fox guarding the hen house. This would be like saying the convicted are the judge of their own case. See what I mean? I mean the accused, not the convicted. The accused are the judge of their own case. Because it's the government who is accused of violating constitutional rights. Why should they then be the decider, the government itself, the decider as to not that's true? Excuse me. And you don't know a better way to do it, then you haven't been thinking. Citizens' court. They have to abide by the Constitution. But they are not government officials. They are, just like juries are not government officials, although they operate in the governmental capacity and are required to abide by the Constitution. See? I mean, I'm not a genius. I'm gifted. I have 128 IQ, probably. Those moving averages. It was 132 on the best day. I've taken, I think it's called the Welshire Adult Intelligence Scale, the WAIS. It's an international standard for intelligence quotients. And I scored 132 on that test, roughly, is somewhere in that range. I talked to Gilbert. What's her name again? Shelby Gilbert. I don't remember her name. And she is the forensic psychologist who gave me that test that I did really well in, although I have autism too. So the point is, get ready to fight, because if you won't fight, you don't care about people like me, who have already been, like, demolished. I don't know if you realize, I'm homeless because of what happened to me. Like, I used to have a fucking house that I rented from my grandma. She didn't live in. It was pretty much my house. I rented it. I took care of it. I took care of myself. I took care of my shopping. I could walk down the road back when I lived at 474 and go to Fred Meyer, which is basically Kroger's, but like its own little franchise that kind of mixes like a Walmart supercenter, half of a supercenter in there. Listen, you just don't care about the downtrodden as long as you're not the one being tread on. Just admit it. Just admit it. Like, when you see people dying in the news, you don't care. Your thoughts and prayers go to nothing, because you would do nothing. You wouldn't lift a finger. You'd rather pray the mountain out of the way and wait 1,000,000 years for it to slowly degrade because of the rains. This is just a metaphor. Then blast it out of your way so you can get to the other side. Is that starting to make sense? Yes, go over the mountain, obviously. But I'm saying something here. You would just do nothing. You would just let the fates and the whimsy take care of it. The downtrodden. I stand up for your rights more than you stood up for anything. Not even your family. I bet if it happened to your own children, you wouldn't care that much. You'd just chastise them and say that they must have been wrong because they would not obey Uncle Sam and suck the cock of the big Grand Samus. Yeah, that's right. Get fucked with a white hot iron rod. That's what you deserve. At least it's what's going to happen to your kids someday, and you won't care about it. But it will be justice if it happened to you. I don't even think your kids deserve to have a parent like you if you wouldn't be able to at least say to yourself you're wrong. And government can be a weapon against the people. It doesn't have to be, which is what I'm saying with Cascadia Plan and Greenhaven. This is serious. Why do I make these videos? I don't care if they even get seen or not. It's good if they get seen, but I make them as a journalistic record about what happened and what I'm thinking. So that no matter what happens next, it'll be perfectly clear. There are victims and there are villains. And when you make out the person who suffered at the hands of evil to be the very evil itself, which caused their own suffering, you are gaslighting that person. You're making it sound like, stop hitting yourself, stop hitting yourself, stop hitting yourself. Right? What'd you do to yourself? I've heard family say that. I've heard other people say, look, there were strangers that met me, called me a survivor. In the hospital when I was first met, they knew my whole story. They knew what happened. And they tried to cover it up, and they still haven't released the body cams of the cops. And nobody checked in on that in Springfield. But if you ever wonder what happened to me, don't trust the media, because I can read the reports, and I can tell you what they're saying is a lie and how they lied about it, because I know what really happened. And I even got the discovery. But, hey, I'm Alexander Konnoff, Konnoff. I'm public enemy number 1, and you'll have to remember someday when I'm gone, the government's not your friend. But what if you designed it so they were more likely to be friendly? That you encouraged friendly people to be in the government. But not communism paying with a smile, but actually like legitimately people who want to help. Like Leslie Knope in Parks and Recreation. See what I mean? It could be much more benign. That's ideal. Ron Swanson, Parks and Recreation is going to have to be one of the better examples I could have made. Because you got a libertarian who works there. Right? Ron Swanson. And he's mostly against any real expansions of the parks. He already thinks this is fine. Just maintain what we've already got. Maybe downscale it. Just make it grass. People can bring their own thing. Take it away later. They have the right to have a truck. Move it around. We shouldn't be getting in the way of people being able to put that there anyway. See? And these are just good jokes to kind of add in. Or not real jokes. They're just like imitations. But purpose of this real conversation is like, government doesn't have to be our enemy. The reason it's our enemy is because we have an unwieldy system. And the Constitution being only 10 pages long, front and back, it's only 5, I think. That, you know, with as small as the Constitution is, as large as it's been created through the legislative acts and the grants of power of the executive, and through judicial rulings, the particular ones that have overturned the common law, that the nation was predominantly, I mean, you could assume the nation is founded upon the common law and that you have the right to common law protections because the common law is even mentioned, I think it's the 6th Amendment or the 7th Amendment. But that's not the real point behind what I'm saying either way. It's not the exact number of the amendment, which I didn't memorize the United States Constitution as much because I wrote my own Constitution. So if we're talking about what the actual rights that are in there, yeah, I know what the rights are. I just don't have all of the 10 amendments memorized or which one is which. I think it's the 6th Amendment because 5th Amendment is warrant requirement, right? No, 4th Amendment is warrant requirement. 5th Amendment is due process. Yeah, I think 6th Amendment is the one. I'm going to, like, if we're Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, I put it on 6th Amendment. I would say it's either the 6th, 7th, or the 8th. Those are my 3, and I think it's the 6th. Or maybe the 7th. I think it's the 6th. So, yeah. Otherwise, the 6th might be right to trial by jury, which would then make it the 7th, because that would be where the common law procedures, all controversies worth more than $20. So, yeah. Government could be our ally and not our enemy if we design it very meticulously and constantly remain vigilant, because I heard a no from a distance, and I will say with constant vigilance and a well-armed populace who are encouraged to exercise their rights and are knowledgeable about their rights and are knowledgeable about the powers of government and the checks and power of government, that is what you need, and that's why we need to have this revolution. It will not happen peacefully. Let me tell you why. It is too unlikely that the states would actually abide by the will of the common people. Also, America is highly fractionalized. Like senatorially, it's mostly Republican. By House of Representatives, actual like populace elector-wise, then that is more Democratic because the population concentrations in certain areas outnumber the lower populated areas that are like conservative. So a revolution that meets the ends that the, like we'll call them the center left and the low end of center left, like the individualist center left, not the authoritarian center left, will definitely go like below center on the authoritarian individualism scale, and then like a little bit left of center, maybe up to like a third of all the way to the far left of, you know, the axis on a regular 2D score, not on a 3D score, where we also have, was it libertarianism versus authoritarianism, and then individualism versus collectivism, something like that. There's a way you can make it a 3D axis, but we're not going to worry about it right now. Yes, we could appeal to them very well with with Cascadia and the Greenhaven, because that plan is definitely going to meet their ends of environmental justice, and it's also going to meet ends of like being maybe in favor of legalization of drugs, which it is, and some other things I can think of, like felons being fully restored and all their rights and respected in law after they finally serve their sentence. So, you know, you're not being stripped of your arms, which some of the liberals actually like. I think it's going to work really well, but it's a syncretic and a hybrid collection of different ideas. Could we be a glorious revolution? Maybe. It would require us to at least have a convention of the states to amend the Constitution to enable secession, and a parallel question as to should we simply overturn the United States Constitution and fully amend it into this new one that I wrote for Cascadia, change the name to Greenhaven. Then Cascadia can have its own secession movement later if it wants to become absolutely fully independent. So that's a real potential. A convention of the states theoretically can do all of this without needing secession. It's actually easier to change the Constitution than, like, to make a whole new Constitution come out of it than it is to leave the Union right now. Theoretically, it's easier. Right now, we would have to have each state that wanted to leave, or each region that wanted to leave, would have to petition Congress for recognition, not as a separate state, or as a combination of states, but to leave the Union. And there most likely have to be a convention of the states to also consent, but maybe not, because Congress does what the Articles of Confederation used to do. So that's a confederated model versus a federal model, which I kind of forget the difference sometimes because they're similar. But I'm not the most knowledgeable guy about this. I know enough to get started. We can make this happen. You know what I said when I started. You know why I went this way. If you want to have a glorious, peaceful revolution, you don't want people like me who have been torn down to go out with a bang, then you might give us a reason to not do that. And your best way to do that is to ensure that our rights are fully respected forevermore. It benefits you, too. It doesn't just benefit me. It doesn't just benefit the people around us or you. It benefits everyone in the United States. You should look for that.